Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for November 20th, 2023. The International Peace Coalition has just announced that on November 26th, it will hold a forum titled No More War Crimes, Economic Development, Not Depopulation. The principal speakers will be Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the founder of the Schiller Institute, and Ray McGovern, the co-founder of the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. And it will take place at 11 a.m., and again, that's on November 26th. Now, this is coming at a crucial moment in the developing crisis around wars on the planet. We're seeing a growing awareness worldwide that the insane commitment of governments in the transatlantic region to war to defend the collapsing unipolar order is putting us on a course toward destruction. And this must end. The overwhelming majority of nations at the United Nations have voted for a ceasefire for the war going on in Gaza. And in the last vote, only 12 nations opposed this resolution, led by the United States and Canada, and a handful of smaller nations largely under the control of the transatlantic region. There are large demonstrations occurring around the world in major cities, and people are reacting to the horror, or I should say are reacting in horror to the destruction and death which is occurring in Gaza, as nearly 5,000 children have been killed so far. The vast majority of those who are marching and protesting are not supporters of Hamas, but citizens who are recoiling to the pictures they're seeing coming from that region of the disproportionate response to the Hamas atrocities which have been unleashed by Netanyahu. Since October 7th, the Israeli Air Force has dropped between 25,000 and 30,000 tons of bombs on Gaza, a relatively small area, and home initially to 2.3 million people. Now, the response to the protests from the arrogant Netanyahu is not surprising. He said, quote, "In the face of heavy opposition, I rebuff the pressure and make clear to the world we will continue to fight until victory," unquote. And what will be the cost of that victory? How many more children will have to die? How many more will be left as orphans to face a cruel future on their own? Meanwhile, the Biden administration remains fully behind Netanyahu, saying that while the Biden administration wants humanitarian protections for the Palestinians, they're continuing to provide weapons to destroy Gaza and its people. Now, those in the military-industrial complex must be delighted to see Democrats and Republicans in Congress embracing another war, and to see the opponents of this war, and these wars, I should say, smeared by the media cartel as Putin apologists and allies of Hamas. We at the Schiller Institute and the LaRouche Organization will continue to provide leadership to those who seek to end the insanity of these wars. And through the International Peace Coalition and a national effort by Diane Sayre, who's a candidate for the U.S. Senate in New York, we will present an alternative to the wars. The alternative is based on the approach to the deeper issue. It's not just a question of saying we need peace. This is not a kumbaya moment. It's to develop the concept of a higher peace movement, which starts with the rejection of geopolitics, the Anglo-American insistence that the so-called rules-based order imposed by the sole superpower, the United States and NATO, must continue. That's being rejected by the majority of the world. And instead, we need to adopt a new security and development architecture which can place the interests of sovereign nations and the people of those nations above the demands of the military-industrial complex and the corporate cartels for a new imperial order. Now, that means we have to stop the transatlantic war machine, and we have to identify what policies will work. And that's something that we have done consistently through the writings and works of Lyndon LaRouche and the continuation of those efforts led by Helga Zepp-LaRouche. Now, in our announcement of the event on November 16th, we quote from John F. Kennedy from his famous June 10th, 1963 speech at American University. And it's important to listen to what Kennedy said, because this was an American president who was part of the Cold War order and came face to face with the potential for the destruction of humanity during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October 1962, and came out of it having changed his view of what would be the basis for relations with the Soviet Union. And he was moving in that direction, as you can see from his June 10th, 1963 speech. But here's what he said in that, which I think is relevant when we look at the crisis we face today. Quote, "Let us examine our attitude toward peace itself. Too many of us think it is impossible. Too many think it is unreal. But that is a dangerous, defeatist belief. It leads to the conclusion that war is inevitable, that mankind is doomed, that we are gripped by forces we cannot control." Kennedy continued, quote, "We need not accept that view. Our problems are man-made. Therefore, they can be solved by man. And man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly insolvable, and we believe they can do it again." Now that's the spirit that must be part of building this new higher peace movement. And as we approach the 60th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, we should commit ourselves to the resolve that he showed by intending to solve the seemingly insolvable. Now, this puts a burden on the people of the United States and Europe. Many of you are suffering from that belief that this is an inevitable conclusion, that it's predestined or preordained, that craziness will dominate the planet and there's nothing you can do about it. Many of you have tried, you've made initial efforts, you've talked to people, you've been rebuffed, or you run into the narrative that, well, we have to kill off the Hamas because of what they did, and therefore any measures that are done are necessary. But we can't succumb to that. That's the kind of pessimism about humanity which leads to more war, and ultimately will endanger us with a nuclear war if we don't assert human reason and human love as an alternative to the bloodthirsty desire for revenge, to right a wrong by making another wrong. So keep an eye on our websites for more announcements of the events to come, including the November 26th event. Join us to build the higher peace movement. This is what will determine the future. Most of mankind is with us, but it's only in the West that the power to stop the move toward a new system is coming. And that power is weak, as we've seen that it's not able to impose its force of will by military means. The only way it can succeed is if you give up. And as Lyndon LaRouche famously said, "I can't be defeated because I won't quit." That's the spirit, as exemplified by the speech I quoted to you from John F. Kennedy, that must move us as we go into this organizing process of the next week to 10 days. So thanks for joining me today. I'll be back again tomorrow.